This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Let's head to Hawaii, where Dr. Lawrence Mueller retired after more than 4 decades as a general thoracic and vascular surgeon in California and New Jersey. Finally, he found the time to write about some of the most rewarding experiences of his life in his book, Jungle Surgeon.
Well, the fact that was worth sharing. When I was a kid, I'm a Woodstock generation. I read Tom Dooley's books. They were bestsellers back then. In fact, the Peace Corps was started by JFK because of Tom Dooley's books. I read them as a fifth grader, and I was inspired to do that kind of thing. And having spent 25 years, a month every year for 25 years in Burma, when I finally ended, I couldn't write the book or anything while I was doing it because of the diplomatic and political sensitivity of what I was doing over there, working with the rebels, the good guys. Which then, when it went out of the news, I could write my book and share what I have done. But now the story is recurring because the Burmese army is attacking the hill tribes once again. Of my 6 children, I took all of them over there at one time or another so that they could see how the rest of the world could live and how good we have it in our lives. And 4 of the 6 went back on their own to work in refugee camps and help these people in Burma. My book is about what I did over there for 25 years, all the major surgery that I did, both in the jungle and in very small clinics, and how you can do that kind of surgery. Part of the reason write the book is to, like I say, motivate other people to do this kind of stuff. There's a lot about what surgery is involved in the jungle, which you don't, totally different than the Mayo Clinic, and what you can do. But I was very successful in what I did. I had no significant complications in doing probably thousands of major operations over there over that time. And in the book, I wanted to share here's what you do and how you do it to do it safely. One of the most worthwhile things that I did with people, because the minority groups in Burma, they had zero access to any meaningful health care. And so you had people that had problems develop when they were children or young adults that just got worse and worse and worse. In America, you never saw these kind of problems. And I'm talking about tumors the size of footballs and basketballs that are not cancer because they didn't kill the patients, but benign things that patients couldn't sit down, they couldn't lay down because of these big tumors. And I was able to basically erase them with major surgery. But I had to do my own anesthesia and my own sterile fields and take care of all the little check boxes that in America we have teams that do all that stuff. The surgeon just comes into the operating room, does the operation, and leaves. But I was personally responsible for every single portion of that to do it. And once you become responsible for that kind of stuff, you get good at it. And it's certainly worth sharing because there are no medical books out about how to do this sort of thing in very limited resource environments. But the way you can help people and change their lives was just so rewarding to me that I kept on doing it for all those years until I finally retired. But it's an adventure. This is how you can help other people. This is how the people in the world live. But there are people out there, though, who by reading the book would hopefully be motivated, just like I did when I read the Tom Dooley books, to go and do that kind of thing, especially for healthcare people to do it. Uh, well, first, I was in the Army for 10 years, 2 years in Seoul, Korea, as chief of surgery for our U.S. forces. And so, on a time and space available basis, I talked our commander to let me use the operating room to operate on poor indigent Koreans who couldn't otherwise get surgery, like cleft lips and hernias and all sorts of things that I did to keep my team ready in case the balloon went up and the war started over there. When I went to Thailand, I was went there with the intention of working in a missionary hospital over there that had a couple of physician friends who had worked over there also. But when I got there, the hospital had changed dramatically. But instead, I ran into the Karen Hill tribe. A total coincidence how this could have happened. And they showed me they had no one helping them. They had no real health care. The Burmese were killing them all as much as they could, burning their villages. Just a horrible situation over there that the world knew nothing about. And so I got motivated, went over there, and he said, these are people I can help." Having been in the military, I was very familiar with wartime things and people, and felt comfortable working with the Karen Army and training their medics. and operating and doing many, many operations on people who had their legs blown off from landmines, bad burns, created horrible scars that made their extremities useless that I could fix. I know how to do this stuff. And so it was just, but as a Christian, it was what I did to share the gifts that I was given over there. And now the American College of Surgeons has got some websites and things like that I'll march the thing through. And then I'm a Notre Dame alumni, and the book is already in the Notre Dame bookstore. And I have a number of faculty members who I've been in contact with who teach pre-med students. And you read this stuff when you're in pre-med, then you kind of get positively motivated to consider doing it when you get older and you have all the skill sets and you graduate from medical school. So my medical school is Loyola, and I work with them to get their alumni interested in this kind of thing. And so those are the doctors and professional kind of people. But I think for lay people, this is a fascinating story. I'm also a magician. I've been a magician my entire life, and had a real nice website thing done for Magicians Without Borders. Because on every trip over there, I did a lot of magic. The people loved it. They'd never seen it. They've heard of it. But I could change, the equivalent of their money, like a $1 bill into a $20 bill just by folding and unfolding it. I had a lot of fun with that.
I bet you
But the poorest
did.
of the poor in the world to watch money multiply in front of their eyes.
Well, that's your next book, Lawrence. Thank you. Daniel Cook is a retired radio guy. He was a programmer, a GM, and a DJ, so writing came naturally to his creative personality. When his son ran away at the age of 14, he was worried sick, but inspired to write Riding Trains.
I've always thought, I think one of these days I'm just going to take the time and see if I can come up with a story. And what happened, my son, he ran away when he was 14 years old and became a traveler and became a hobo. And he rode trains and he lived that very dangerous life. So that was what sort of inspired me. I said, I think I can come up with a story about that because there's enough murder, sex, drugs, and rock and roll and being out there traveling the country and the characters that live that life. I thought, well, maybe I can come up with a story, and that's how it happened. I based it on him running away, and there was I had the experience of knowing what it's like to have a young son like that to just disappear, and you don't know where he is, and the police are not real thrilled to try to help you find him, when they're out there traveling the country and being a hobo. They don't really pay much attention to those kind of people.
You must have been worried sick.
Oh, believe me, it was frightening. So, I was worried about him every day, wondering if I was going to get that call that his body had been found somewhere. And then he would call occasionally on the road. He'd feel bad for himself. He would tell me he's sorry that he ran away, and eventually he got tired of being on the road, sleeping under bridges, and then he came home. So he's been living with me ever since with his daughter, who I took over being the guardian. So that's where it all came from. And then I had the research of talking to him about what it was like to live out under a bridge and to live that lifestyle. And I've been working on this story for about 12 years. I'd write it, rewrite it, write it, rewrite it. And then I had a person tell me that it sucked. And so I lost confidence in my ability to write. So I stopped doing that for a short period of time. And then I had a good friend who read it and she said, that guy's crazy. That's a good story. So then I got back on the bandwagon and I was watching a feature on artists and writers. And the feature was the older you are, the more successful you can be being an author and being a bestseller because you've lived a long life. You have the experience. And so you can write about it. And so I came up with this story, made up all the characters, good guys, bad guys. It starts off in the first chapter with this character. His name's Jordan, who is based on my son. He's coming home and he's sitting on the steps in Tulsa, Oklahoma, waiting to catch an airplane. His dad is going to pay for him to fly home. So in the meantime, his arch enemy, purple tattooed faced bum by the name of Bolt, a vicious character, mean, was across the street in an alley. He caught up with him and he was going to kill him. And then I go back to start from the very beginning of how he runs away and what life was like, and for him living at home, and then his travels. And so we lead back up to the end of the story, the last chapter, where you find out whether he's going to live or die. I've done some the radio interview that we're doing here, and I've been on several radio stations, 91X in San Diego and my hometown of Reno. The FM rock and roll station that I was the program director of, I've been on there. Actually, I'm talking to a couple people to do some advertising on Facebook, and I have several hundred people that follow me because I have friends in the radio business from across the country, and so I'm spreading the word that way.
All right, Daniel, that's a good start. Thank you. Massimo Palermo is a Gen Xer. He's an accountant, investor, and now an author in Chicago whose bachelor life inspired him to write Desire to Love. A life, as you can tell by the title, isn't all it's cracked up to be.
Let's see. Many different factors have inspired me. Going through life as a bachelor, I got asked often by women why I never married, and men would say to me that I am so lucky to be living the lifestyle of a bachelor. So I wrote this book to illustrate why or what causes a man to stay a bachelor for so long, and also illustrate to the readers that leading the life of a bachelor is rather lonely. So my intention was to find myself a nice girl, get married, have a family, but that didn't turn out that way. So Desire for Love is about Gianni Martino and takes place over 4 decades of his life, starting from his early teens, and starts with his sudden transformation physically, and also how people began to treat him differently, and how he had to overcome his shyness and adapt to his transformation and begin to build his confidence to approach and ask a girl out on a date. As the story progresses, he begins to overcome his obstacles of being shy. Through the book, he falls into the bachelor lifestyle and leading this life that he did not want. And he tries to pull himself together and get to what he really wants, which was to settle down with one woman and get married.
What's the deal with him? Like, is there something wrong with him or them or what?
Yeah, so I mean, the character has a problem because a lot of women will approach him or date him, and then they start questioning, well, why are you still single? You're such a good catch. You're so good looking. You're so nice. I mean, you should have been swept up a long time ago. So this raises red flags to women. And that's where he falls into this stigma, as you say, as a bachelor. And people get worried and get scared. And in some cases, their own personal insecurities. And that's why ends up trying to continue to find that one person that has that perfect chemistry with him. This is a series, and I don't want to get into too much as far as does he find the person without giving away too much with the ending of the book. So the ending is kind of like unexpected, but yet fitting for the character and the book itself.
What could possibly, there's nothing wrong with this guy. Like, is there any conflict in here? Is the conflict within himself? Are you afraid you're not going to achieve the marriage that your parents had, or did they have a bad marriage?
The parents had a very good relationship, and people get scared. For example, I can give you a perfect example. One woman would say, "You're the perfect person for me. You are exactly what I want in a man, to be in a relationship, to settle down with, but I can't sit around and wait for me to develop the feelings for you and move on." So these are some of the things that he's faced as a character.
So do we see this this handsome guy that's sad and lonely?
Yes, that's what you see throughout pretty much most of the book. When he's in a relationship with someone, women will be aggressive towards him and literally like hit on him in front of his own, his girlfriends. And that makes the women jealous, right? So that's where the hangups are. It isn't necessarily with him that he does anything intentionally. It's just the nature of him.
This sounds like a great beach read.
Yeah. I've been networking. I've been spreading the word around. I just created a YouTube channel, Massimo Palermo YouTube channel. I will be launching my website next month. Just look it up by, Massimo Palermo or Desire for Love, or in fact, put them all together. You should be able to find it.
All right, Massimo, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be looking you up now that they've heard your story, all right? We're going to take a short break, but we're coming right back. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books, and unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them, and they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
We're back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Kimberly Cruz asks, do you believe in reincarnation? And writes about a woman who's experienced over 80 lifetimes in her book, Birthmark, a manuscript she started in high school at the age of 18, and now at the age of 23, she's proud to say she's a published author.
So it is about a girl named Millennium who realizes later on that she can recall all of her past lives, and she, kind of also has to realize that nobody else does. So she goes on trying to be better every single lifetime she gets.
What kind of past lives did she have?
For the most part, just the lives of typically the younger generation from 20s to her teen years. You kind of find out in the book more of the gist of her other lives, but this one in particular that she tells you about.
The one she's currently living?
Yes.
Does she talk about how her other past lives influenced her?
Yeah, she does. You're going to come to find how her first life really impacted the way she lives every single life of hers, and what exactly made this life of hers different when she comes to bring who you will come to find be her sister into her mix, and how her sister also becomes a really big part of her reincarnated lives.
What was she in her first life?
You come to realize that she was brought up in a pretty broken home, but it kind of influenced her to be not so broken herself as she comes to live and be a stronger girl for it.
So I'm curious, what made you write a book about past lives? Is this something, do you believe in reincarnation?
I think for the most part, I would say so. But what inspired this book was actually that I have quite a few birthmarks. And one day in my class, a friend of mine had noticed, and he told me, did you know that they say birthmarks are supposed to kind of represent all the places that you have been born before, in essence, how many times? And I just really loved the idea of that. And I'm like, I think I could make that into a very interesting story.
How many birthmarks do you have?
I don't know. I'd probably say at least 60 to 70 something.
Wow, that's a lot of past lives.
Yeah. I think the ultimate message that I would like people to take from this book of mine is that life is always going really fast, and it goes on with or without you. So the thing that you really always want to do is insert yourself, and there are going to be those days that it's perfectly fine for you to kind of take a step back, take a breather, but you always want to make sure that you go back to live the life that God pretty much intended for you to live. And as long as you surround yourself with the people that are right for you, that they'll continue to push you to be better in yourself and also better just overall. And, I have a blog specifically for my writing, so I also do, kind of just some excerpts, but also a lot of poetry that I put out there. I do a big promotion. Mainly, it goes into my social media, mainly on my Twitter and my Instagram, but also on a blog that I have on Tumblr.
All right. All good stuff, Kimberly. Looking forward to the next book. Thank you. Bobby Ticer is a retired cannery worker in Oregon, and he's the kind of guy who likes a challenge. So he decided to explain gravity in his book entitled Explaining Gravity.
Well, after I got out of the Air Force, I took a class, in community college in philosophy, and I just got interested in knowing how to explain how gravity works, and it was never really explained. It's with the history of the development of physics and cosmology. It includes past theory, all established theory, and some other theory. Like physicists, sometimes they don't want to explain things; they just want to formulate, and others they reject, like relativity theory. And this book, it includes everything. It doesn't reject anything. It's insight on cause and effect. Most physicists don't explain cause and effect. When some that do, like I said, they reject relativity theory or other theory. So they don't get a complete understanding of the whole theory consistently. I can explain things like entropy, how it differs from energy, and most everything. I give a clearer explanation of how they interrelate, step by step, simple, like by history, and how it goes step by step, instead of in different languages, like different math and so forth. It confuses you.
So when you say there's some theories that reject the theory of relativity?
Yeah, there's the electric universe theory that the people know they don't know it's relativity. When I took a class in special relativity at the university here, I found all of it consistent, internally consistent. And I mistakenly disagreed on one thing, and I wrote a paper on it, and I submitted it to a journal, and they were interested in it. But then when I found the flaw in it, they rejected it because they didn't accept relativity theory or against it. I'm just hoping to get people to read it. I tell about it and I show it to them, and they're interested. It's academic. It's most people read it should be academic.
Have you run this by anybody in academic circles?
Yeah, I've contacted him, and there was one at the University of Oregon. He was really impressed with it. One it's been really developed since then. When it wasn't as developed as it is now, it's just got a lot of positive response from people who read it. It was a challenge to explain gravity. I was good at solving things, puzzles, playing games, and winning at games, and all that stuff. This is what I did. I took the challenge to write it and figure it out.
Well, good for you, Bobby. I couldn't even imagine explaining, algebra, let alone gravity. All right, thank you. Ray Howard is not wasting any time at all. He just published Ray of Light in February, and 4 months later, we're talking about his second book, Knots Revisited. As you may recall, he was a teacher for 40 years, a psychotherapist for more than 20, and at one time he studied to be a priest. Now he's an author, and you are on fire, Ray.
I have 18 books ready to be published as soon as I can type them out. But my screenplay and my novel was aimed for the mentally ill community and the gay community, but it's much more now. I'm running for the election of 2024 as a progressive independent candidate, and I want the novel and the screenplay to be an effort at complete transparency to the American people, so they get to know me intimately and know exactly what I am.
Now, is this about your journey with bipolar disorder?
Very definitely. I think that was the first case I've ever heard of it, and I don't know how I got through it, but I had good help, and I think everybody has to count on other people to help them. Nobody does it alone through life. If you want to know how to be a teacher, or how to be a therapist. There's a lot of sections in the book for that. And it starts to give my views about politics and religion, which are my forte. In the novel, I open it in a very unconventional way. I go to the moment of my conception as an identical mirror image twin, and start the book there. And I go through my childhood. I go through my teaching experience, my counseling experience, and it was marred by being bipolar and being gay. I suffered severely for both of them, and I didn't stop. I didn't become a ward of the state. I fought it, and now I'm pretty free of it. At first, I wanted the book just to be for the mentally ill community and the gay community to help them understand what they went through or are going through. But it's become much bigger now, and I want to do things that no president will have ever done who has been president, and I want to get the chance to do it. And these books will reveal me intimately to the public, and I want them to know me and what I have to offer. And I can't wait to get these other 18 books published so they understand I mean business. I put it on a bookstore in London. I'm trying to get ReaderLink, an email person, to put it on all the major outlets in the country.
Are you going to run for office before you publish the 18 books, or are you going to get all 18 out?
No, I'm going to get these books sold and make my movie and sing some songs and dance and be an actor and be a comedian and be famous before I run for the presidency. But my biggest intent and my purpose is very deep and very severe. I want to help the American people. In the history of the United States, the downtrodden, the poor, have never been given the right chance to get into the middle class and make a name for themselves. The pandemic is causing a whole new generation of paupers that are going to be here for decades if we don't take care of them. I'm going to give them hope. They're going to have their dreams fulfilled.
All right, hope. We can't have enough of that, can we? Never have enough hope. And I hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. Thanks so much for stopping by, and thanks for downloading the podcast if that's how you're listening right now. Always an interesting listen, right? And you can find the podcast 24/7 at 710WOR.com. Hope you're mask-free wherever you are, and I'll catch you next time. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini.